So welcome to the meeting. People can put their names on, adding you, Scott. So let's see, where are we? Let's start with pending proposals. We'll go through these. So this restrict promotion to infallible operations, we had a final comment period. It has completed. I don't think there's really much to say here. We could just kind of close it as approved, right? We're basically waiting on the PR. The only thing is that I was encouraging Ralph to write an RFC. I don't know whether we want to track that somehow, but
mentioned to me the other day he had 2 on his list, so this might be one of them.
yeah. Why don't I reach out to him and just check on it?
Having a tracking issue seems like a good idea, but otherwise this seems fine.
I think at minimum, it would be good to copy paste essentially the motivation section from the note or from the original description to something like a design note or similar text if we don't have an RFC soon, just to have it tracked somewhere that's not a closed issue.
Yeah, I agree. I don't want, that's a good, I hadn't thought of a design note, but that's a good idea for an interim place. I don't want to just have a tracked closed issue. I agree. It doesn't feel right. Let's see. Let's put a few notes on that. Okay. Pub macro. So we had a move to close. Doesn't sound like anything box objects. Is there anything else anyone wants to say, or shall I close the issue?
I do think that having a solution to the underlying problem would be of value. I saw some of the preliminary discussions before this ended up as an MCP, and I think the actual problem needs solving. It's just, I agree with that and don't object to the closing of this, but I'm wondering if there's some way we could encourage the actual foundation of a group to at least work on this problem. Even if it isn't a group that is full, like, let's solve hygiene and macros 2.0, could we potentially charter a group to solve the scoping issue?
Well, I think they're kind of interconnected. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed. It's basically a question of who.
Right.
We've kind of been in this stasis point for a little while now. I think maybe a good thing to do would be to move for the, like, an immediate action we could take. It would be to kind of collect it in sort of a wish list area, which we don't yet really have a good solution for. That might be something worth trying. This might be a good candidate. I don't think this exact proposal is the wish list, but just the idea of tackling the problem and whatever subset of hygiene we think we can carve out. Does that sound like a plausible thing? I'm basically thinking that when we next circle around to like roadmap planning or other planning, we could have it down and not forget that. Thoughts? Could always add it into this area. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to close this.
Seems reasonable.
Then let's just do that right now. I'll elaborate on it in a little bit, but like address problem of health functions for exported macros, basically. And then
Yeah.
subset of hygiene 2.0. See also, yeah. Okay. All right. And let's see, last one, types as concrete. Look at this.
This had just some discussion on Zulip. My inclination here is that this is a close as a nice conceptual simplification, but not helping us really make progress on variadic generics.
Okay.
Could you say a bit more?
So this is saying, what if we make types and lifetimes have const only types so that they can be passed around as const generics, and then you can make like compile time only lists of types and things like that.
I see. So
So
effectively, there is a value that is the type of T.
Right. So then it proposes things like, oh, you just have an array of types, and that's how variadic generics would work, or something like this.
Right.
That
makes sense.
That doesn't seem implausible that we could go there, but I'm not sure that you know, how that is represented in the impl header was our biggest problem with variadic generics.
Sure.
Builds on a lot of stuff that's in progress too, right? Like,
yeah.
You don't have const generics, for example.
Yeah, this does seem like, at a minimum, revisiting this after min const generics seems like a good call.
Yeah, it seems really cool to have the, you know, everything's just a constant value. It says lifetimes are even constant values. You can make a like list of lifetimes and things. It sounds cool. I don't know how useful it is. And the bigger problem I have is I don't know how to actually get those types out of the const values and use them to do things based on this proposal.
Right, right. There's a lot of generals, like this is acting like this generalization makes sense, but there's a lot of things that.
Right. How do you dereference one of these so that you can use it as an actual type and not a constant?
Yeah, the example I have put in Zulip is how do I make an enum with one variant for each of the types in this list? And that's hard. And
right.
Saying, well, you just have a list of types doesn't solve that question.
Right. Either you need a giant pile of new syntax or you need to effectively punt to a proc macro like codec compile time system.
Right.
Scott, do you want to write a move to close?
Yeah.
And
sure, I can do that.
What I've been doing is just tagging it as final comment period, but
yeah,
we don't have automation for that right now.
The idea of reifying more of Rust syntax into the type system is an interesting one, or at least into the compile time evaluation system. But I think that the enum is a good example, Scott, because if we were going to go that route, we would want to get enough of the AST that you could effectively compute at compile time an enum definition and say, hey, compiler, please process this. Yeah. Whether that's proc macros 2.0 or just an extension of existing proc macros is another question, but either way, yeah, it doesn't look like this. This is a too small of a subset to solve the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my feeling. And I do want, you know, more things like trait generics would be cool and all this, but there's a lot of more complicated questions than what the impl header looks like to do that.
Right.
So let's move on. Design meeting planning. Laying team process tweaks. Travis, you wrote some things here.
I did.
Issues.
So I wrote these because I thought it'd be good to take a little bit of this meeting time to do a combination of design meeting planning and other item scheduling.
Mhm.
One of these items, like getting consensus around language team membership, language team expectations of membership, et cetera, is something where we could potentially discuss that async via the TLang Zulip streams. But Lang team process tweaks, the ones that we were just talking about, Nico, seem like something that would be easiest to start out talking about live, the whole seconding thing.
Yeah, let me just post this in here real quickly while we're doing it. We talked about these Lang team expectations once before, and there's this document that I drew up and which has been edited slightly since then that I might want people to like look at and decide if we think this is right. I think the most, we don't necessarily want to do it right now, but just pointing it out to people, it's here. I think the thing I would call attention to is attending both of these meetings and how we feel about that, and the expectation that ideally people look for be liaisoning for a project group, even if you don't have to be doing that all the time. And that would be something to think about. Process tweaks. Right? So part of the context here is that the libs team has published a charter kind of thing, which is adopting a number of like the MCP process from the compiler, and something is very loud. I'm gonna figure out who it is. Josh, I muted you, just warning, and Scott. So the libs team has adopted this, or has proposed this charter. It has a lot of overlap with compiler and Lang, and it'd be cool to kind of unify them. That's the first thing, so that we're a little more consistent. And secondly, Josh and I were talking about like some specific changes, like using seconding to close RFCs instead of having everybody have to check their box. And I don't know what else we were talking about, Josh, but I guess using seconding in some other.
We also talked about using seconding for MCPs for the initial charter, not for the final like RFCs and similar, but in order to say somebody ought to work on this, then a proposal, a second, and no objections seems like it ought to be sufficient to say, hey, somebody thinks we have time for this.
Anyway, potentially. I'm not sure if I agree yet, but I'm not going to take a position. But we could talk about it. Maybe we could get RUSS and maybe some libs team folks involved even. I think it might be good to do a smaller discussion about this too, to come up with a specific proposal first. Actually, while we're doing this, I would add scheduling of design meetings, how to do it better, because I don't like the way we do it right now. And then there's these two other topics.
This is actually part of why I was bringing this up in the meeting, is that we should really have dedicated time for scheduling design meetings.
Yeah. I agree. I think probably the process the compiler uses is the right one, which is to say every fourth meeting we have a slot to talk about the next three. Kind of heavy, but it works.
So the compiler team, though, we have a smaller workload of meetings to go through now.
Do we?
Maybe I'm wrong. I feel like the compiler team, at least certainly recently, we haven't had anything at all.
Yeah, summer is quiet. How much stuff do we have today? Well, I guess the question, how much active scheduling do we want to do here? We don't have everyone involved. Maybe the question is whether people how people feel about scheduling these things over the next couple of weeks. Any reason not to?
Let's.
One thing I would like to have is an expectation also that if we're going to have a meeting, that somebody has prepared a document that is available beforehand. So maybe we should actually kind of make that a requirement. There should be a document to read and then schedule it, which kind of narrows it to these two at the moment. Maybe even just the first one. And then the main goal for the other ones would be to actually go and prepare such a document. Try to keep meetings effective. If so, I would be willing to take on the goal of doing the Slang team process tweaks. And I don't know, the invited discussion, I'm not sure exactly what document is needed there because there is a paper everyone could read. Maybe that is the document.
Nico, do you have a link to the charter for the Libs team, the process tweaks? Thanks. Thanks.
So how do you feel about that? Does anyone want to take the work to prepare these other things?
We have Bonanza left too, right? So like that's another fourth item here, or fifth item.
Yep. We should probably do Bonanza this week, and I'll try to work with Josh and we'll schedule all these other ones for a few weeks. Because we're so close to finishing the Bonanza.
Also, I don't know what the, I'm sorry if you already mentioned this, Billet, I didn't catch it, the invited discussion with authors of RUSS paper.
You don't know what that is?
I have no idea what that is.
If you weren't here at the meeting. So there's a paper that was published in, I think, Paco, or maybe PLDI, I forget, which went through and looked at a bunch of like Rust code and found bugs, basically. And kind of categorized, I guess PLDI, categorized what kinds of bugs are specific to Rust programs and their causes. And we thought it'd be pretty cool to bring the authors in and we can kind of talk about it because they also make some proposals, ways to address those bugs and make them less common. Might seed some ideas.
Gotcha. Okay.
They were pretty open to that. They just wanted to know when. So maybe that's an easy one to do. I would say if we're going to do this, I'd want to do it a few weeks out so people actually have time to read the paper beforehand. All right. All right. After this meeting, I will propose a schedule. And I will test it out and sort it. I don't want to do it live. Okay. Project board review. Let's see if there's any major things here. So we kind of went through the incoming proposals. Already, I can remove this one. Any updates from Consteval, Async Foundation, macro repetition counts, const generics? I don't think so. I don't know if I'm do I see like things? Is there fresh comments? I don't know. I know that const generics, LCNR left a comment that I was following up on, where it seemed like the min const generic website was more or less up to date. So let me put it in here. And that they wanted some help on designing the test suite. So I was going to try to make some time for that and work with them. And that might also then be a nice like update for kind of this group. So an update after that. Project Safe Transmute. This is an interesting one. The thread is active. If you haven't read it, there were some major updates. And I guess there's currently a certain amount of controversy about, or like controversy is maybe too strong a word, but there's some back and forth about how minimal this should be. And what exactly the use cases are for the extensions.
The whole here thing with making it a macro and the implications that has on all the different traits is quite interesting.
Yeah, I had a long conversation with JS Ren today about it. Made me feel like I understand better what motivated it. I still feel I have pretty mixed feelings about it as a mechanism. I don't know how much we want to talk about it right now, though. We could.
I'm wondering if it's enough to become a design meeting kind of a thing.
It feels like it probably is.
It seems like it is there. Yeah.
The last time we had the conversation about it, that was just the neglect stability option, right? That was serving kind of this purpose.
The neglect is still there, but yeah.
Yeah, this was a way to avoid needing neglect stability.
I see.
I think.
It does serve that purpose, at least in part.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
I do like.
Go ahead.
I do like the non-exhaustive style inside a crate. You have more permissions to do things. Goal. I don't know if this is necessarily the best solution, but I'm not sure I have any better one either. So
I'm trying to think what the structure of the design meeting would be that makes the most sense. I mean, I guess just walking through the mechanisms and their motivation and kind of hashing out possible alternatives might be good. I would like someone to take charge of preparing for it. I don't know who that would be. I wonder if boats would be interested.
Josh, you were about to say something?
I was just going to suggest, kind of following up with what you mentioned, I do think that the problem that here is trying to solve makes sense in terms of let's let you do things on the basis of I would have permission to construct this by hand if I wanted to. I think it's more a question of should this be API surface area? Should this be exposed? Should it ever be stabilized? Or is it something that should be perma unstable as part of safe transmute internals?
It really does kind of come back to the goals we're trying to solve a little bit.
Right. I mean, I have personally no objections to here as a mechanism for like internal surface area if we build it in such a way that if we changed it, we wouldn't break anything. But if it's something that we're actually exposing, I'm not confident it's the right point in the design space versus just hiding more of it behind the compiler curtain and saying here's the semantic we're trying to provide of constructability.
The impression I got was that it hits some funky things around if you want to like forward this between types in some way, that like you can say that you're constructible if this other thing is constructible and that needs passing along the where you are token or something.
Yeah, I think that's right. I guess I really don't. I want to find some solution that's more like you opt in and we're satisfied with that. But I'm not sure what are the. I think part of it, in talking to JS Ren, I got the sense that there were use cases beyond what I originally had in mind, which was like take some structs and convert them into easy cases. Some of it is like being able to really cleanly say when something can be initialized all from zeros. So if you just write 0 all the time, and it works beautifully. When it should work and not when it shouldn't, stuff like that. I don't know. Well, all right. I agree with follow-up design meeting. I'm curious, does anyone in this meeting want to take point on organizing that? Like drawing up some agenda and filing an issue, if nothing else.
Sure, I can take a look at that.
Is that you, Scott?
Yep.
Okey-doke. No major comments here. Implementation proceeds on all of these topics. Never type. You made some progress. I don't know. Good. We're not doing it. Any other updates on inline assembly, instruction set, RF macros?
One update on inline assembly. There was some renewed discussion recently on whether this should be exposed as a unqualified macro ASM, or whether it should be exposed as something like core arch target name ASM.
Okay.
In fact, like core arch x86. There was discussion about like which one makes the most sense. There are trade-offs there. Some of these were discussed in the original RFC, but nonetheless, I wanted to bring up that it was being discussed again. I think part of the concern there is, on the one hand, most of the time your assembly will be target specific, and so it wouldn't be that big a deal, except that it'd be an extra bit of friction to have to import the requisite ASM. On the other hand, there are real cases where you're using ASM in a surprisingly portable way, whether it's I'm writing ASM for both 32-bit and 64-bit and don't want to have to import one or the other because that might be my only 32-bit, 64-bit qualifier. Or alternatively, you're primarily using assembly directives as what you're trying to accomplish. Switch to a section, emit a D word, switch back, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So there are trade-offs here, and I think this is ultimately going to require a decision before stabilization. I personally still come down on the side of we should not require qualifying it, but I understand the desire to qualify it, and any further thought we should.
I think it'd be useful to write up an. Whoa, echo. Write up an issue that that pros and cons or whatever. Once it's kind of settled down, and we could move to stabilize then. Once we're ready to make the call, kind of.
Apart from that, I think this is still on track for stabilization. I haven't seen any other issues that would working just fine. There's still some ongoing discussion of how do we handle the LLVM version checking and similar, but there has been a new LLVM release, so that may help.
Okay. Oh, is that because we added some things? I forget what was the deal with that. All right, sorry, let's move on. Great.
Bug fixes, specific.
I remember now. Well, why is this like huge here? This. I don't understand what's going on there. That's okay. So there's two nominated RFCs. Let's take a look. This one is nominated for the compiler team, actually. This is the one we said in Backlog Bonanza we ought to move to the compiler team, so I'll close it. Super trait item shadowing.
I took a look at this one.
Oh, right. I nominated it because you guys were going to have some. You ready to talk about it or not yet?
Basically, I looked through this and went, yep. It's doing all the sort of things we talk. It has a good, nice, long discussion about the fragile base class problem. About, hey, this is all about if people update the class and the trait, and you're being more specific than that trait, the name conflicts break your code, and that's not really what you wanted. Seems to do a good talk through of all of the sides of like, okay, it has to this version. It here's why these cases still need to error. It's very very similar to all the things you'd probably expect if you used to like a Java or C# interface rules for what's considered a conflict. The most interesting thing that I'd be curious to get some people who know more about the implementation side here is that if you bound your generic to super or sub or super plus sub, they all do slightly different things.
Oh, like.
Yes. So the last of those with super plus sub means that if you call a method that they both have, that's an ambiguity error, because with the two bounds, even though one is a super of the other, you don't know which one that method came from the first time. So you can't pick, it has to be an error.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's well motivated that this is what it has to be. And that's also what happens if you have two distinct traits that don't relate to each other in any way. If you just have t colon foo plus bar and they both have the same method, then it has to be an ambiguity error because there's not really any better option on the call.
Does this apply? Presumably this also applies to like this kind of action.
Presumably, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But other than that, it's basically doing all the things that we talked about in Bonanza and hypothesized that it was probably doing. Like, well, if you're in super, if you're in sub, it'll take things from super as sort of a fallback. It'll treat the things in its own trait, kind of like we treat inherent methods, and then they'll fall back to the super traits if necessary.
I have to dig into the implementation to know how easy or hard that would be. I mean, it makes sense. It also would affect Chalk a little bit, maybe. But, well, right now, Chalk doesn't deal with like this shorthand notations regardless. I had some plans for how I wanted to do it. It might be affected by this.
Yeah. My core feeling on the whole thing is that what it said it was going to do and what it said was still had to be ambiguous seemed well motivated to me, that there wasn't a whole lot of places I said, oh, shouldn't it be this other way instead? Basically, whenever I was thinking that, it came along later and said, no, it has to be that way because blah.
Okay. Should we consider merging? Sounds like yes.
I might want to give Boats a chance to have a comment about this, maybe in Bonanza if he's joining on Wednesday.
All right.
I just don't want to go and say, hey, I looked at this, and if Boats already is still looking at it, I want them to have a chance to say what they were going to say about it.
Okay. Sounds good. We'll revisit it next week then. If you want to leave a comment, that probably would be appreciated by the author. But okay. PHI issues warning incompatible with previous, oh, this thing. We talked about this. See if there's any updates, I guess. Okay, not really. So last time we talked quite at length about this issue, and I think we were coming to the conclusion that, well, kind of what I said here. We'd like to get some creator run, but we're not convinced we should break this code. Anyone have further thoughts?
I should be able to find time this week to construct the clear timeline of different behaviors, but nothing beyond that.
Yeah. I guess it seems like someone is going to have to like do something to make this change. You can't just revert the PR, right? I don't think.
Is one of the goals here to ensure that cap lints works again? Is that was something that I wasn't here at last week's meeting. But I skimmed over some of the discussion here. Is the part of the issue is that cap lints has stopped working since we added the thing that started disallowing the two, or is that not the issue?
Not really about cap lints. It's about the fact that this code went from being accepted, I think, to becoming an error. And there was code in the creator, like there are existing crates that relied on that, for better or worse. And so the dimension of cap lints is just, it would be nice if this were a lint and not an error so that existing crates didn't break.
Yeah, okay.
So.
Yeah, all right.
And it's kind of, really the question is when they're in the same scope.
Right, no, I implemented the PR that did this initially, so I know what we're, that context.
How hard do you think it would be since you implemented the PR to
just make it a lint instead of an error, a hard error?
Like linting, that this is a no-op.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Probably easy.
Doesn't seem too hard, but I don't know. Josh, I muted you because you're typing loud.
Is there any reason not to? Okay, so is there any reason not to turn into a lint?
I don't think so. I mean, except for like some form of consistency argument, but.
Well, and we had discussed last time that like if you have forbid on safe code and then someone goes on in the same like top level scope or whatever and says allow unsafe code, probably you want some sort of warning, and potentially that could be an error.
You definitely want, you definitely want the forbid to win, and you probably want a warning, right? But I don't know that you need it to be an error necessarily.
Maybe that's the issue then. I bet with the error, I didn't have to implement the code to make forbid win, right? It errors.
Right.
So turning it to a lint is not as trivial as one might think, because we'd have to also make sure we have put in the code the right way to make the forbid win out.
That sounds right. I guess my take, I don't know how, I think I would be happy with the forbid winning and you get a warning. That would be a good outcome for me. But I don't know if I can live with the current behavior also, probably. But it is a regression, which that's another design meeting topic maybe, or something to just think about. Revisiting our regression rules and how much we're willing to tolerate.
It seems like the behavior you suggested where we sort of make this more of a lint makes sense. I would be interested in finding out once I have time to construct the timeline, whether that's like a regression or how much of a regression that is. Because I'm not actually sure what the behavior before was in terms of whether the forbid or the warn or what one.
Okay.
I think the last thing that was pushed was what won. That was my memory is that was the bug. As in the most recent attribute won out, which was itself then a problem.
Yeah. So I guess next step will still be the timeline, presumably. How much do we, how time sensitive is this?
We have more than one release cycle. Where beta is 148 right now, and this will land in 149.
Okay.
So we have time.
All right. Does everyone agree they would be happy with this behavior? Everyone in the meeting? Okay. Let's try to move a little.
Sorry, that question was people who agree that what it says this code currently does is unacceptable?
No, I wasn't asking if what it currently does is unacceptable. I was asking, would you be happy with this behavior? Forbid wins, but we generate the warning.
Yeah, as long as forbid wins, that's fine by me, I think. This is one of those time machine places where forbid, I'd say, no, it's a hard error, but, well, I don't know. We don't have a time machine yet, so.
I don't know what I would consider if we had a time machine, but we don't. All right, switch mutable. Ah, yes, this. So this is a move. If you remember, I left a comment. This was deferred a couple weeks back to have someone leave some comments, so I did. In two-phase borrows, we had this pattern when we first added it, where a pre-existing borrow like let s equals ampersand v was allowed to overlap a mutable borrow like the one here, so long as the mutable borrow hadn't been activated yet. And we removed it because that introduced a kind of non-stack-like behavior. And that didn't fit well with stack borrows. And it wasn't really the original goal of that change, which was to accept stack-like case, where you have a mutable borrow that has not yet been activated, a shared borrow that occurs, and then the activation of the mutable borrow, meaning calling the function. But that was kind of controversial. And we, if I recall, Josh, you and I settled that we would give warnings and come back when we could take more time to really explain what we're giving up by making this decision, or like what optimizations we're enabling, that kind of thing. And this PR proposes making it deny by default, which is not, finalizing the decision. Ralph mentions, I haven't had time to really look into this, that Stack Borrows has since adopted a more relaxed one that actually does, more relaxed model that actually accepts the original code, but that will come at the cost of some optimizations. We're not sure how much. And I'm not sure exactly why this was done. That needs more digging in. That's the current status, though.
So given that, should we press pause on this one until Ralph gets back to us with a concrete notion of what needs to happen?
I mean, that might be like a long time that we can really firmly say, because this Stack Borrows model is like still a work in progress. We could do a
I don't mean the whole Stack Borrows model. I just mean it sounds like Ralph needs a little bit of time to think about this particular lint, and we should follow up to find out, do you think this makes sense, or has Stack Borrows changed in such a way that we no longer need to block this?
Yeah. He notes here that some of the follow-up work he has in mind is unlikely to happen in the next 6 months.
Right. Can we, why don't I post a comment asking if that means that a concrete decision on this lint would need to wait for those full 6 months, or do you just feel that you'd need 6 months to finalize the whole model?
That's fine. I think my opinion is one thing is we could still move forward with, it still may make sense to be conservative here. We can always re-accept the code. What I was going to suggest is we also could kick off a creator run to get some idea of what the impact of this change would be anyway. People are getting warnings now. They would be moving to getting errors by default. But we don't know how many crates would be affected.
Nico, do you know offhand how tightly this lint is with the rest of full NLL, as it's called?
How tightly integrated it is?
Like the person who posted this, I got the impression when I was reading over the whole history of what happened here, that, or in terms of this particular PR, is that you have this contributor who's looking to stabilize full NLL, and as part of that work, they figured they would turn this to a deny by default lint. But so much of full NLL has nothing to do with this, right?
Yeah, it's just one small piece. I'm somewhat motivated because I feel like if we're gonna try to defend against this pattern, we probably do want to deny by default, which is why I would be somewhat motivated to do this. Otherwise, I don't know, more code will exist that we will be affecting.
I'd rather invest time in trying to get feature incompat done. Like we don't have that feature yet, and that's the part of the puzzle here in terms of, you know, having downstream crates still tell you that they are doing something that's feature incompatible.
Okay. All right. Well, Josh, why don't you leave the comment you mentioned, and we'll circle back to this next week. It's not urgent right now. So that sound good?
I think I'll add that it's
Sounds
sort
good.
of odd for it to sit as a warning.
What's that, Scott?
It feels to me kind of odd that it would sit as a warning. That, like, in a way, if we're trying to say you shouldn't be doing this and it's been warning for a while, upping it to deny might make sense because people should be allowing it either way if they really wanted to do it.
I continue to assert that without feature incompat for downstream crates, just switching it to deny by default means that people who are clients of upstream crates will suddenly see their code start failing without any warning whatsoever.
They won't, right? Because
Oh, well, except for, okay, I'm sorry. Oh, yes, except for the fact we have cap lints. Never mind, it's not. Ah, you're right. Deny by default is fine. It's just hard error that's bad. Oy, okay.
just changing it to a hard error would break people. I'd like to do a crater run still, but all right. Well, let's try to summarize the meeting. Crater run to see impact might be useful. Deny by default would not immediately break existing crates. So if we want to discourage folks from this pattern, this is a logical step. And we basically would like some clarification from Ralph. Like, do you think that it still makes sense to forbid, to deprecate this, to forbid this? Or do you think that, is that what you're running at? Do you think that?
That's roughly what I'm writing, yes. I'm trying to write it in a manner that does not put pressure on Ralph to change his timeline expectations. I just want to find out what the timeline expectations are.
All right, I'll just put ask Josh Triplet to leave a comment clarifying with more questions.
Sounds good.
Okay. Use depth one is considered ambiguous on nightly data. Felix, remember we had this in the compiler meeting and we kicked it to Lang. Well,
Yeah, and then I wasn't here last week. Yeah.
So we kind of concluded that we thought the ambiguity was okay. I wanted to show you the example of this case. Where you're like using you're exporting a name that you then resolve against. And it seemed like a bug fix. We don't have crater data. But we were okay with it. You don't want to make any changes, are you happy with this?
I have nothing to report.
We move to close. Wait for I guess let's just unnominate and wait and see. 'Cause we'll get some crater results at some point, right, Mark?
We should, yeah. I'm not sure if this is, I'm not sure which nightly this was. Potentially either in a few hours or in a cycle, so like 4 weeks.
Okay. Josh asked in chat, do we know what changed to break this? The answer, Josh, is that Petroshenkov landed a PR, which was, as they wrote, not strictly a bug fix, but a more conservative language rule. I don't know. Around avoiding, yeah, what the PR title here says, self-confirming import declarations. Which was, I guess, motivated by to fix this bug of glob time travel, where it was a search.
I think the bug is the same thing as this issue, essentially, just more code to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, this bug is showing the ambiguity, but it's not having an effect, I think. It's not being detected. And basically what the workaround is you have to make this explicit by putting a : so that it's clearly identified as a crate. All right, I'm gonna move to unnominate and we'll let it sit. Unless someone objects now. What is this? Oh no, that's the same one. Repre Transparent on generic type skips exactly one non-zero sized field. Anyone follow up on this? Looks like
I nominated it because it made sense to me. It's a little weird that if you do it with a generic, you can put a ZST in a transparent, but if you do it without a generic, you're not allowed to.
that is weird.
So I think being transparent over a ZST is okay. It's kind of pointless, but you could if you want. I think allowing it would be totally reasonable.
It does seem vacuously true that passing this wrapper around a ZST is exactly the same as passing the ZST, which is to say you can't really do either one. So sure, that's fine.
Yeah.
The other alternative would be to complain in the generic case as well, but that would be a monomorphization time restriction.
I guess
Or we have to provide a non-ZST trait, but that sounds terrible.
no. Yeah, that's no good.
No, it would not be in the trait system. I'm saying we could just flag it.
I'd be happy with this, but I feel like we have to sort of define what the behavior is when you do pass it. Like, I guess the reason for the rule was that we said it was treated by the ABI the same as that single field. So if there is no field that is non-zero size, then you have to say it's treated like something, right? What? However unit it is, I guess. Anyway, I would be happy. We agree with the sense of this, but would like a specific proposal to approve.
I guess one problem is if you have two ZSTs in something that's transparent, we don't know which one you're transparent to.
I think you're transparent to neither of them. You're like transparent to nothing. That's kind of what I'm proposing, at least. That you just have some fixed behavior. Because
Yeah, we shouldn't change the compiler to make it exactly one field here. I'm sorry. It's not exactly one field, and that field may be zero sized. It's there should be 0 or 1 non-zero sized fields, and allowing the 0 case is not incredibly unreasonable.
wait, what? 0 or 1? Yeah, that's right. But it's just a new case that wasn't covered by the rules. Right?
I mean, along the same lines, you could also have a Repre Transparent type. By these same rules, you could have a Repre Transparent type that contains both an actual type and a phantom data, for example.
Yeah, and that's
Would
what
that be reasonable to do?
You know, the rules are meant to allow you to have one real value and then a bunch of phantom datas or other zeros, other ZSTs. And then you act exactly like the real value. But if there's no real value, then what do you act like? That's what I meant.
Yeah. So either we should keep the warning and try to make it warn in the generic type case as well, or we should just change it to be 0 or 1 instead of 1. I do think we should still enforce that there isn't more than 1, though.
Yeah.
I like Nico's point that asking for a concrete rule of what the rule should be.
Yeah. I'll say if someone can supply a concrete rule that makes sense, how's that?
Yeah, the inconsistency is weird. We don't want monomorphization time errors. Come up with a concrete rule, and we'll say, great, let's do it.
Is the implication that the concrete rule that was proposed in the issue does not make sense? Is that
No rule.
that is one reading of those comments?
It didn't propose what, it just proposed that we remove a restriction. It didn't propose what should happen in the case that is now possible.
I see. So I see. What is the dynamic semantics or whatever the intended semantics of transparency when there's 0? Okay.
For example, if you had a unit, a phantom data, and a format error, which are all ZSTs, which one are we transparent to?
Yeah.
Right, and I think the answer should be we're not transparent to anything because there's no non-zero sized type. So if we're going to allow this, we could also allow a Repre Transparent struct that has no fields.
Right. I think that would fall out from this. Yeah. Okay. We'll leave it nominated. And I think we're at time, so we should stop. There's a tracking issue. If everyone has another second, we could look at this. But half range patterns, Mark nominated it. Let's do it next time. All right, thank you all.
There is at least one bit of complexity here, yes.
All right, we'll cover it next time. Thanks everybody for coming.
Bye.